Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. I hope you guys are doing great. If you're new here, my name is Dana, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a look and a flip through of the Raise for Today Arithmetic Level 2. Now, I do have both levels 2 and 3. However, for the sake of today's video, and because I want it to be more thorough in the flip through, we're just going to be concentrating on level 2. I am so excited to be sharing this with you guys. If you guys are new here, we incorporated the Raise Arithmetic series into our homeschool, I want to say the middle to the end of the last school year, very lightly, because we were still working on our Christian Light education units. But when I kind of came across this and refreshed my memory of this, I just fell in love with it. And so we started kind of switching them out a little bit. So you fast forward a few months, and in my 2024 and 25 homeschool video, when I was talking about what we're doing for the upcoming year, I was saying that we were going to do Raise Arithmetic in combination with the Simply Charlotte Mason math, as well as still kind of keeping this Christian Light education math in my back of my mind, or back burner I should say, but not completely eliminate it out of the picture, because I still think workbooks are very valuable, especially in the busy seasons of life, which we'll also get into here shortly. Anyway, you fast forward another little bit, and in a couple videos ago, I was sharing that our family's kind of been jumping back and forth between Raise, Simply Charlotte Mason Math, Ace Pace, which I just happened to grab because I wanted to see what it was about, and then Christian Light Education, as well as Raise for Today Arithmetic series. So having a bunch of different math curriculums that you're kind of playing with slash doing and kind of rotating between, I would say for me anyway, the main con is I know I'm not going to be completing any one curriculum. I'm not going to be seeing through completion any one series, whether that be Christian Light Education, Raise for Today, the Raise, Simply Charlotte Mason Math, like anything. I'm not going to be seeing it through to completion, because we're not doing this every single day. I'm not doing Christian Light Education every single day. The pros of having a bunch of different ones is you can be so flexible and be so extremely in tune and catering to exactly what season of life you are in, not just by the week or the month or the difficult season, but by the day if needed. So if we have a week that's a little bit all over the place with either work projects, or we're busy traveling, or on the days that we're home even. For example, some weeks will look like on a Monday, if we're home all day, we're going to do Simply Charlotte Mason Math. Raise for Today, we're going to get into all the hands-on manipulatives and have time to really explore math. On the days that we're really busy and we need to go, or we're going on a trip or something, we will get Christian Light Education, or as I showed in my last video, we got Ace Pace to experience just for fun, since I just got one unit. So we'll do the workbook thing if we're traveling and things like that. On the days where it's beautiful outside and we just want to spend the day outside and things like that, then we'll 100% do just the original Raised Readers, because this is 100% focused on the oral mental math. So I know that my kiddos can be swinging, we can be taking a nature walk, and I can open it up. I'm just going to open it up right here and show you where we're at. But I can open it up and I can just be reading my kiddos' questions. And I just absolutely love this. I love seeing how quickly my kiddos' skills are developing when it comes to their mental math. And I've shared before on my channel, especially when it comes to talking about Raise, I think mental math is one of the things that's missing from a lot of the common curriculum out there, especially like the workbook things. And I also mentioned in a previous video that you can take a workbook math and you can turn it into a more mental math by simply just asking your kiddos questions about the said math. One of the things that I really gravitated towards when it came to Raise for Today Arithmetic, again based off of the original Raise, but Raise for Today and Raise in general is really based off of skill, not grade. And so I love how they emphasize that you should not let your child move on until a certain skill is mastered. There's no grades to hold you back. You kind of meet your child exactly where they're at. This is a great thing too, because I've actually been asked this by several people, I think on here on Instagram, about what to do when you want to switch curriculums when you're halfway through the year, or if you've completed a few months of math and you just don't want to switch, but you don't want to backtrack and start a new one all over again. Raise is a wonderful, wonderful book to get, because you as the parent can switch through and see, okay, this is where my child is at. meet them literally exactly where they are at and then move forward with the skill from there. You're not having to jump back to the beginning of a curriculum to build. You can just, it's just skill level based. And so Raise for Today does a beautiful job in explaining to the parent just the overall importance of mastering the skills, whether that be your addition, subtraction, your multiplication tables and things like that, before moving on. The lessons are short, they're simple, they're sweet, they're impactful. You have things in there which we'll get through and flip through here in a minute, like things like concrete mixers where you work on a daily basis, and then you have practice problems. But Raise for Today is still based off of that mental oral math. However, you can still get your little math graph books out and still use it and still utilize writing numbers and seeing them, but it is again more that mental math focus. So I'm excited to be sharing it with you guys because this has been a blessing to us. Now that we're back home into a more of a routine, I should say, I'm just excited to utilize this more. I'm also going to go ahead and mention in my last video, which this could still change, but my last video that I mentioned when I shared my 2nd and 3rd graders curriculum, and I was telling you guys I'll keep you updated as far as what we're using as far as math goes. And I will go ahead and confidently say that as of right now, we are leaning mostly towards doing this probably 3 days a week now. And then on that days 4 and 5, it's either Charlotte Mason or CLE. But more days often than not, we are doing Raise, and then of course Raise for Today, the workbooks. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and grab the camera and the books, and I'm gonna show you probably the instruction manual first. I'll probably read through most of the beginning introduction so you get a good feel and idea of what it is. And this curriculum, the instruction manual, is 100%, I would say, a necessity. And then we'll go through the student workbook. I'll kind of show you how they work together, some of the things that your student will learn, the mastery involved, the little notes and things like that. And yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about it. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So the Raise for Today does come in loose leaf format, so that's just something to be aware of. In case you're not a fan of that, I actually don't mind because I think the 3-ring binders are really fun to personalize. We're gonna go ahead and take a look at what it is inside the instructor's manual. You have your Unit 1, which is really just going to be focusing on review. Your child, before you get into the core part of this curriculum, really should be fluent from skip counting from 2s to 10s, and of course skip counting using coins. Your Unit 2, of course, is gonna be having a lot of focus on your multiplication facts. And when I say a lot of focus, there's not just a lot of focus on memorizing the tables, there's going to be a lot of practice. And one of the things that we're going to get to when we get into the lessons is you're going to have like your 10 facts family practice, which is your story problems, your 10 fact family number bonds, and just like there's practice games, there's tracking multiplication facts, multiplication sign and review, multiplication review with story problems, multiplying multiple numbers, using math operations, and it is just so thorough. So by the end of Unit 2, your child will be incredibly fluent and proficient in multiplying and just mastering the skill, mastering the concept. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning part of the video, this is not going to be one of those pressure things where you try to complete the workbook. It's really just going to be focusing on mastering that skill, which I absolutely love. And I love how mental it is as well. And then Unit 3 is going to be your division facts, the exact same thing, where you just have a lot of practice going through all the different tables of division, all the way from picturing division all the way to like your mixed story problems. And then Unit 4, you're going to be focusing on counting to 1,000, which is adding to your number charts. Unit 5, your main core focus is going to be place value. So again, a lot of different practice utilizing the place value, from regrouping to practicing to story problems to multi-digit numerals, and I just love all the practice that it does entail. So I don't remember if I mentioned this or not in this cut, but Raise is another wonderful way to, if you are struggling with a math curriculum and you need to take a step back from your current one, but you don't want to start a new one back from the beginning, I would supplement with Raise until you complete a skill set, until you're ready to move on to a quote-unquote formal grade. So if you're, let's say, almost halfway through the school year and you're like, this is no longer working for our family, but I don't want to spend the money and I don't want to spend my time and resources starting the grade over again, highly recommend Raise. You can get these thrifted, but Mott Media is a publisher of this, and they still are. You can open this up and you're like, well, my child knows this. You can open this up and be like, well, my child knows this. So you keep flipping through and you can meet them exactly where they're at and then start building on that skill from there on forward. So I had to mention that Raise is a wonderful way to, if you are again needing to switch curriculums midway through the year, and you need to master some skills, a wonderful way to do that. So Raise for Today. The Raise for Today textbooks may not look like the original small brown book, which is this one right here, but the content is very much the same, which I would definitely agree with since I've kind of used both now. Almost all of the original problems in this book is included in the Raise for Today curriculum. So skipping around here, what we've added to these textbooks is our effort to recreate that presentation, which is in this one here, in an age-appropriate manner in the student text while still keeping the focus on oral language and mental math. So research has shown that this proven approach helps children develop patterns of thinking that enable them to handle mathematical concepts such as place value and commutativity without even realizing it. So as we go through the lessons with your child, you will be able to recognize what is being taught. The teacher's guide will give you any background information that is necessary and will spell out for you exactly what math skills are being taught as well as how to present them, which is a wonderful thing for first-time homeschoolers who may want a different approach to teaching mathematics. You have at your fingertips what the classroom teacher knew as he or she presented the lessons to the class. So the purpose here. So their purpose. Welcome to the ultimate math journey. As with the original Raise series, we're headed on a course to teach a deep understanding of math, which I highly agree with. We want children to see that numbers make sense. So to do so, they need to see the relationship between objects, word descriptions, symbols, and reasoning. By traveling from real-world experiences to visuals and models to symbols and abstract reasoning, we can make this sequential road of mathematics feasible for any child and learning style. And I love that they focus and they reiterate multiple times in the teacher guide that this is not about moving on to the next lesson. It's not about flipping the page. It's not about grades. It's literally about mastering a concept and mastering a skill. So the destination points of interest. The more senses we can use in learning, the more likely it will stick. So multisensory learning. If I had to explain this, and I mentioned it in my past video here, if I had to explain it in one way, it would be the perfect blend of using this along with Math with Confidence. So if you were to combine this with Math with Confidence, this is what this is going to do for you. So it's going to give you a lot of manipulative ideas. It's going to give you kind of a packing list, so to speak, when you go on an adventure. So the more ways children can connect to a concept, the more likely it will stick. And so those are just some little tips that you can read. Moving on to the next part here. This follows the natural path of learning from the concrete to the abstract. So natural learning moves from real life experiences to concrete learning using familiar objects to visual representations to symbolic representation. So your number symbols and things like that. So here's what your process might look like. So say you're playing with a ball, real life experience. So I'm playing with my toddler. I give her 3 balls. That's your concrete familiar representation. We then have your visual representation. We're going to now get 3 counters out, and then we can look at the number 3 on the page. A lot of different math curriculums will kind of start around here in the middle and then jump to looking at the number 3. I do think number recognition is really important, and yes, the toddlers can recognize all the numbers, and my little preschooler can recognize numbers and say, oh, this is 3, but can she go and pick out 3 objects? Can she count to 3 when I give her like 3 little counters? So the importance of actually seeing the physical, like what does number 3 mean though, is totally different than just recognizing number 3, if that makes sense. So this establishes a foundation of learning that allows a student to build a thorough knowledge of math based on the 4 stages of information processing or knowing. So students are exposed to the idea from real life using as many senses as possible so they can recognize a skill or concept in order to understand how to do it and why it works, until they are so intimately acquainted with it that they can see and use it automatically in several applications. So it's really experiencing numbers. And one of the reasons why I love this is you can experience mathematical numbers and experience it in so many different ways. And everything God created, you can experience math. And so the focus is on gaining experience with our number system. This experience centers on interacting with the material in such a way that cements learning rather than doing lots of busy work. Again, a concept that I do think Math with Confidence does very well when it comes to building the concrete ideas and understanding of math and things like that. So again, a perfect combination of Math with Confidence with the simplicity and the open go and mental math. So it's kind of like a version, it's almost like a mental math version of a Math with Confidence, if that makes sense. So your role as a teacher and parent. So the parent teacher serves as a tour guide in this curriculum who makes sure that the tourist or child sees everything there is to see along the way. So it's our job to kind of help them observe and to watch and see. So we want each student to have that aha moment when he or she gets it. So particularly in the early going, you'll be traveling right alongside your child. This may seem like a lot of extra effort on your part, but it will be worth it in the long run. You will actually be saving yourself and your child time and aggravation down the road, which is so true. So we kept the daily lessons short so that the learning journey doesn't consume a lot of your time. The instructor's manual includes the information you will need for this journey, including a suggested way to present the lesson. While you do not have to use the exact wording, the dialogue should stay as close as possible to the method described. So the lessons use the to-with-by approach when teaching skills. The parent and teacher introduces the skill to the child. The parent will then work with the child, and then the child will do the skill by himself. Since children can vary greatly in terms of readiness, learning style, and development of the fine motor skills needed for printing, the amount of time needed to work with the child will vary as well. Different learning objectives. This is one of my favorite things. Again, I mentioned it multiple times already, but skill levels instead of grades. So students moved through the levels textbooks as they mastered the skills. They did not go on to the next book just because the academic calendar changed. Students had to show a certain level of proficiency before moving on to the next book. So Ray's new primary arithmetic, they would not go on to the next one, which is intellectual arithmetic, until they have mastered everything in this book. The teacher would keep them in here until everything was mastered and then moved on. So again, it's not grade level, it is skill level when it comes to Ray's. So because math is a sequential subject where the topics build on what is being learned previously, this proficiency is absolutely essential. And I think us as homeschool mamas can get caught up on it's a new school year, we're ready for the next grade. And so I think math is one of those things that can really get frustrating as we go on, because if we're moving on to the next grade before they've mastered the previous year's concepts, that's where I think that the further you go into that pattern, the more frustrating math becomes and the more tears. So the older you get, the more tears the child might have if they can't get it because the original concept hadn't been mastered yet. Again, that's something that we had just talked about. So review the skills until the child has that moment and gets it. The scope and sequence of this program varies somewhat from the typical approach. This is because we are focusing again on building concrete understanding first. Once this foundation is in place, it is easier and more efficient to teach the subsequent skills. So the main learning objectives for the second level of Raise for today are to, again, this is what the whole level 2 is about. Learn how to read, write, and count the numbers under 1,000. Learn how to multiply numbers with products up to 100 and divide numbers with dividends up to 100. And all the multiplication and division fact families, 1 through 10, and the place value to 1,000. So on each lesson, which we'll get through here in a moment, you're going to have a packing list. In order to help your child reach this deep understanding of math, you will need to use manipulatives or hands-on models and visuals. So if your child is more of a sensory, visual, hands-on learner, then when you have your packing list, when we get to our lessons here in a minute, I would definitely recommend doing all the things that they recommend doing when it comes to manipulatives. It is not a lot. However, when it comes to solidifying concepts, it takes 5-10 minutes, and it's a world of difference when it comes to the grasping the concept of mathematics and how they work. So a heads up, by the time you reach unit 4, counting to 1,000. All right, so the cement mixers. In the Raise for Today series, we insert the teaching portion in a student textbook so that each lesson presents the skills and gives some practice. So if your child raises through the day's lessons, then you can augment it with some of these drills. If your child needs a change of pace for a day, you can use a few of these to give your child his minimum daily requirement of the essential math, what they like to call vitamins. The purpose of these oral exercise is to cement the skills into each unit into your child's long-term memory. When a child can do the math in his head, he's got it. Again, a huge emphasis on building the skill in mental math. If your child needs to use a scrap piece of paper, that's fine, but try to work towards oral mastery if possible. So again, it's really focusing on being able to do this in your head. And once your child can do all of these things in their head, and when they can do it mentally and orally only, then you know that they're not just going off of the numbers on the page. If they can repeat it back to you, if they can understand how it works, then they get it. So some CMET mixers are listed at the beginning of each unit with suggestions on as to when to use them. So CMET mixers are provided in the appendix for families who need more review or who want to supplement the lessons farther and to keep skills current over the summer. And then down here, of course, you're going to have some assessments on how to assess your kids to meet them exactly where they are. All right, then you are ready for your overall teacher look at the Unit 1. So this is going to be a look at lessons 1 through 15. It's going to give you a little look at where you are headed. So we are assuming that your child has, and of course, mastered the skills up to 100. So before you even start this curriculum for level 2 anyway, there is level 1. But before you move on to level 2, you want to make sure he's mastered the counting skills to 100, including counting in order, counting on from a given number. So if you say, can you count from 37 to 64? Can you count from 79 to 100? And then for Unit 1, you have a packing list. So you're going to need either a chalkboard, a whiteboard, or blank sheets of paper. You'll need 100 counters, a copy of 100 chart, and then your little money here for the first unit. For mile markers, how much review of level 1 skills are required depends on whether the essential skills were grasped. So it's just reiterating a skill thing. So here are our CMET mixers. So this is for use with lessons 1 through 15 or any time during level 2. So the goals are to practice addition, subtraction, and multiplication. So begin with 2s and add by 2s to 100. So for every single lesson you're going to practice on your CMET mixer, this is essentially what they would call like your vitamins of your curriculum. You're going to work on these every single day. They're simple, they only take a few minutes, but you're going to begin by skip counting, and then you're going to check off the box only if they've mastered it. So throughout Unit 2, you don't have to do this in only Unit 1. It's just to use with the lesson or to use with lessons 1 through 15. But you can take this entire series and just work on the concrete mixers, but don't check the box off until you've mastered that concept. So once they can skip count from 2 to 100, go ahead and mark that off as being mastered, and you can just go down the list until everything has been fully mastered. This is what the teacher guide looks like when it comes to our daily lessons. Usually we're going to go on a fun adventure, we're going to go through packing, and so you can even get a cute little suitcase. You can go around with your child and you're going to pack in your suitcase. You're going to get a little chalkboard or some paper and just make it fun, and you're going to teach your child along the way on the adventure. So the lesson reviews the essential skills your child needs to know about our number system. The words in bold type are math vocabulary words your child should know. So this is going to give you a kind of a really specific guide on what to do with your child in each lesson. And again, your lesson 2, you're working on addition facts, so packing list. Addition 3, you're going to just work on addition story problems. So lesson 4, you're going to be kind of reviewing subtraction facts. Lesson 5, subtraction and mixed story problems. Lesson 6, skip counting by 2s. And then by the end of the week, you're going to have mile markers. So this week's lessons on skip counting will give us something to hook the multiplication facts to when they are introduced next week. After lesson 6, you're going to hit a mile marker. So this week's lessons on skip counting will give us something to hook the multiplication facts to when they are introduced next week. So on the mile markers, you don't want to move on to the next lesson until the previous weeks have really been mastered and the concepts have been solidified. The mile marker is kind of letting you know, okay, let's stop, let's make sure everything is mastered, and then we'll move on to the next lesson, and then it will kind of take you along the way. And it's laid out the same way. So again, you have the packing list for each of your lessons. Then you have a tourist attraction. Again, you're going on an adventure with your child. So here are some activities your child can do to extend the learning in this unit. So skip counting with playing cards. So they give you ideas for some fun games, some fun activities, and it's just a fun adventure along the way. So level 2, here's your CMET mixers. So this is going to be once you're in Unit 2. We already saw the CMET mixers for Unit 2. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of concepts to master. and most of them have to do with the multiplication tables. So for Unit 2, your CMET mixers are having a lot to do with practicing multiplication. So how many are 2 times 5? How many are 3 times 8? So this is going to be all of your CMET mixers that you're going to kind of drill on a daily basis until they're mastered. And then once they've completed it, or once they can, every single morning when you jump around, ask them a different question, if they've gotten it right every time, then you can go ahead and mark that off. So it's the same thing pretty much all throughout. I am going to go ahead and jump to the back here really quickly and show you what types of things are in the appendix and some other little extra things that they put in the back here. 1 second. Okay, so in the back here in our appendix, you're going to have the Level 2 Readiness Assessment. So I'm going to give you a look at this if your child can do this. So counting objects, if they can come down here, write numerals, like recognize that this is the number 3 and then write 3. And for solving problems for part 3, how many are 2 blocks and 2 blocks? So real life application. And then part 4, addition facts to 5, and then addition facts to 10. And then the third page here, you have part 6, solving addition problems, subtraction facts to 5, and then subtraction facts to 10, and then solving subtraction problems. You want to make sure that before you start this curriculum as well, that they can do all of the level 1 bookmarks, which can make the connection between the number of items and the numeral that is used to show the amount. So this is going to really help you as a student. Keep an eye on, make sure they are learning, even though again, it's not based off of grade, but of readiness and skill. And then we have our Raise for Today Level 2 Scope and Sequence. So the main learning objectives for the second level of Raise for Today are to learn how to read, write, and count the numbers to 1,000, learn how to multiply and divide numbers, and learn place value through the hundreds. So your number concepts, you're going to go through here, counting to 1,000, recognizing number words to 1,000, and this is a wonderful way to, if you really want to do a hands-on, learn your own type of math your way, your style, getting something like this as a very detailed scope and sequence where you can just go through the list and master skills your own way is a wonderful way to build skills as well. So you have your Raise for Today Level 2 benchmarks, which is great. So by the end of the curriculum, you will have mastered all these different concepts. So CMET mixers, check when done at least 1 time. These exercises can be used more than once. So these are just all of your extra little CMET mixers in the back that you can refer to throughout the curriculum. In the back, you have your hundreds chart, which is wonderful for this curriculum. You have your multiplication table, so you can print these out, or I have laminated ones that I have at home that are, bright and fun and colorful, kind of the kids like, but some more multiplication tables. You have addition and subtraction and number bond worksheets. Again, these are really, really good for solidifying concepts when it comes to number families and how they relate to one another. Multiplication bond worksheet. You have a little Math Jungle game board, which is fun that they incorporate some fun games. And then Math Jungle Animals, so you'll be doing some fun games there. Math Football, another fun math game. You have, what is this one? Racetrack game board, basketball game board, soccer field game, number cards for soccer games, multiplication table. And then in the back here, you of course have your answer key with all the answers right there at your fingertips so you can help your student as they go. So now that we got a look at everything that Raise for Today is kind of going to hold and entail, I'm going to go ahead and open up to Lesson 1 in the teacher guide, and then I'm going to open up Lesson 1 in the student book, and you're going to see how they kind of work together when it comes to what the teacher will do and what the student will do. So this is the 3-ring binder that I put my daughter's workbook in. What I ended up doing for her, because it's a lot of pages for her, what I ended up doing is I took some of the things out that I knew we were going to be taking out a lot. So for example, her fact families, I put this in page protectors. So if for a day, if we're just memorizing facts and we're going through the different fact families, we can take this out and kind of take it with us wherever we are. If we're outside playing, because we know that we need to master all of these things anyway, we'll take this out, and that's just something that has worked well for us. So let me go to Lesson 1 really quick. All right, so they're next to each other, so I can go back and forth a little bit easier. All right, so as a refresher, to refresh our memory, lesson 1 in the teacher guide is all about using numbers. So we have a packing list. Let's go pack our things together. We're gonna grab a chalkboard, or you can just grab a blank piece of paper and a pencil. You do not need anything fancy with this at all. So this is one thing I love about Raise. Again, you're talking back in the day where all they might have had is some slate and chalk, and that's it. No fancy things. I love that. So the lesson reviews the essential skills your child needs to know about our number system. So we're going to jump over here. Unit 1, again, is all about review. It's reviewing concepts from the previous level. Again, we don't want to move on with this book until these things are mastered. So numbers are very useful. They are tools we use to help us. They are used to count objects, group objects, make equal fair shares, count how many there are when more items have been added, count how many there are when items have been taken away, tell time, and measure. We use numerals as shortcuts for writing out the names of numbers when we count. You should already know how to count from 1 to 100, and you should already know how to write those numbers using the numerals 1 through 100. So as you're reading this to your child, you're going to go and look at the vocabulary. So numerals, 0, skip counting. So 0 is also the starting point we use when skip counting and on a number line of whole numbers. Do you remember that we can use number bonds to show how some numbers are related? And number bonds are in the back here. So let me go back to number bonds to show you that this is what you can, at this point, go ahead and get out and talk to your child about. So these would be, that's the multiplication one. So these are your number bonds. So these are your fact families where you can work at with your child. You can draw them on the board to solidify the concepts. But again, it's a concept that you do want to have solidified. So the number in the top box is the answer. So think of the number bond I just showed you. The 2 numbers in the bottom row are the numbers that are added together. And then, so this has an example as well of what that is. So do you remember that we can write these addition facts? So 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 2 equals 5. And you're also the vocabulary subtract, take away what that means. So again, you are really reviewing and you are really just talking about how and why numbers work in the first unit. So, and then here's some real life story problems that use these math facts. So you're going to come over here. These are the little math facts and the math problems that you already kind of talked about. Then you're going to come over here and practice them. So Joey has 5 bugs in his collection. He found 3 more bugs today. How many bugs does Joey have altogether? So you're going to practice kind of putting them in real life sentences. So do you remember that when we are counting real life objects and when we are solving real life story problems, we need to include the units that tell us about them? So again, the first lesson is all about just numbers and how they work. But every single lesson is going to be really short and sweet like that. So we're going to come back here. We have addition facts for lesson 2. So let's jump ahead in the student book and go to lesson 2. All lesson 2 is reviewing your fact family. So 1, 2s, 3s, 4s. Again, you really want to master it. So look at the fact family chart. For the 1s, the first column shows what happens when we add 1 to the counting numbers 1 through 10. In each case, the number is 1 more than the counting number. The second column shows what happens when you begin with the counting numbers and add 1 to each of them. So again, you're solidifying concepts, you're solidifying numbers. And then for practice, this is all done mentally and orally. So your practice for this lesson, you're going to be how many are 10 and 6? How many are 7 and 7? And then they'll give the answer. And then whenever I have her give me an answer, I always have her give me the unit answer. So how many are 10 and 6? Well, 10 plus 6 is 16 is normally what she would reply in for that one. And that is it for that lesson. You're again solidifying concepts and you're doing a lot of extra practice. And because this is all mental and oral, it's really quick. It's very, very quick how you can go through that. But as you can tell, like this page and that page talking about math was all for that lesson. And then you go on to lesson 3, which is addition story problems. So just to give you a brief rundown of how this is going to work, you're talking about solidifying concepts, you're memorizing your fact families, make sure they're solidified before you move on. So you can spend a whole week just memorizing the fact families. You're going to practice with them, practice concepts, and then you're going to go into addition story problems. So now that we've mastered how to add numbers, we're going to do a lot of real life application, like real life story problems to make that concept come to life. And again, by the time you get to this point, everything has been solidified with the understanding of math and how it works. And then the next part, or lesson 4, you're going to do the exact same process as you did with addition. You're going to memorize the subtraction families, again, solidifying the concepts. You're going to do the same little exercise up here. it's the exact same layout, sorry, where everything is practiced, everything is seen. You have a real life story problems, a lot of different practice on here, but it's also short. So lesson 6, you're gonna get on to skip counting by 2s. Yep, lesson 6. And then this is it. So you're gonna talk about it, you're solidifying concepts, you're getting the counters out. I love the way they teach multiplication. When you do a real life kind of lesson with us, you're gonna get a look at that. So now count the numbers of 2s in the number sentence above. So you're learning how to add multiples to get to the multiplication. And so I love that. Again, number 7, skip counting by 3s. So at this point, every single lesson is skip counting by 4s. Next lesson is skip counting by 5s until you get all the way through 10s. And then after unit 1, you'll get into unit 2. And that's when you'll start memorizing all the actual math multiplication tables, like the multiplication fact families. Up to this point, one of the ways that they teach multiplication is through addition. They say, well, in order to get 2 times a number, they really want you to solidify that it's 2. So for example, 2 times 3 would be 6. So they would see, well, 2 plus 2 plus 2 would be 6. If they were to go 3 by 3 is 9, they'd be like 3 plus 3 plus 3. So they're really solidifying the fact that multiplication is just a faster way to add. And so they teach you how to think about that concept a little bit differently than I've seen in original textbooks. So that's something that's done a little bit differently. Again, it's teaching you that 1 times 10 is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Yeah. So, and it's taught down here as well. So you can have 2 times 10 is 2, 10 times equals 20. So I do like the way they teach that. And for my little one, she loved the concept and the idea, and she really got it when she saw on the page this. And I know CLE has done this a little bit too, as well as ACE PACE, but not to the extent of the practice that they do offer in this book. But as I showed you the scope and the sequence, this level 2 is really focusing on mastering every single table for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and then you're gonna start getting into just different place value all the way up to like 1,000. Wonderfully done. I'm really excited. This is probably one of those things where I'll be a little bit more consistent with, because this I have been really consistent with and I just love it. But yeah, that was a little look at what is inside the Raise for Today teacher guide, level 2, and then the student book. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing it. I know we've been loving it. I love how they talk about numbers. I love how they relate real life things to numbers. And again, short, simple, and sweet, and it's based off of one of my favorite math resources for our homeschool. But let me know down below if you guys do want to see level 3. Again, I'm happy to make that video for you if you want to see how that's laid out. It's pretty much identical. It's just, of course, going to have more advanced concepts. If you do want to know what that entails, let me know down below. But until my next video, I hope you guys have a great day, whatever you're doing, and God bless.